6-foot guard from West Des Moines, Iowa, the reigning WNBA Rookie of the Year, and the greatest of all time, number 22, Caitlin Clark!
Ajo, instead of celebrating Wilson's retirement, which should have been a momentous occasion, she is upset and frustrated. Not because she is being overlooked, but rather because Caitlin Clark is receiving more attention. The real question is whether Wilson is frustrated that his ceremony isn't selling
right now.
But the thing that was the coolest about coaching this young woman is she is the same today as when she came in. She is full of confidence. She's full of grace, and she has an unbelievable power to make everybody around her better. And the thing I'd like to close with, if you didn't know, to celebrate this wonderful moment, she gave $22,000 to 4 different entities in this town to share her success and to say thank you.
Out while supporters are spending over $11,000 for a seat at Clark's celebration. Is it justified, or is this just jealousy? Let's examine why Clark is the greater star in the first place and why Wilson's legacy isn't creating the same buzz. A.A. Wilson should be celebrating her retirement from the WNBA.
Wilson's jersey retirement should be a moment of celebration, a recognition of her contributions to South Carolina basketball and her dominance in the WNBA. But instead of basking in the honor, she's frustrated, and not just frustrated, angry. Not because of something South Carolina did, not because of some internal mistake, but because Caitlin Clark is outshining her.
So you were 5 years old when you decided on
contributions to South Carolina basketball. But instead of basking in the glory, she is angry. And not just because of something South Carolina did, not because of an internal error, but because Caitlin Clark is outperforming her. 2. Let's be honest. Wilson isn't upset about the jersey retirement per se. Rather, she's upset about what it stands for. She looks at the numbers, noting that her ceremony, which ought to be a historic event, isn't receiving nearly as much attention as it ought to, and that her tickets are selling for as little as $16. Music during claps. Music, claps, claps. She then turns to face Iowa, where Caitlin Clark's jersey retirement is such a huge event.
Number 22, as the story goes. If we were to tell that 5-year-old what today was going to be, what would she have said?
Honestly, I'm very overwhelmed. This has been absolutely incredible. Just being here and feeling this energy again, there's really no place like this place, and I truly mean that. And it's special for me, it's special for my family, and a lot of my former teammates are back here, former coaches, the coaching staff, and some of my teammates that are still on the team. But, I'm just very lucky and grateful and very fortunate. At 5 years old, you don't dream of
$1, and supporters are vying for seats. The excitement is so intense that it hurts. Int 3. Wilson has been positioned as one of the faces of women's basketball for years. She has the qualifications and has earned MVP awards, championships, and she has won an Olympic gold medal. South Carolina even presented her with a statue, something that most athletes never receive in their lifetime. Yet here we are, with all of the enthusiasm surrounding her retirement in Jersey. People simply aren't that interested, according to the numbers. She can try to blame it on timing, claim that it's unfair that Clark's retirement is occurring at the same time, and even claim that Clark is receiving more media attention than she deserves, but ultimately, none of that alters the situation's reality. Wilson finds it difficult to believe that this isn't about WNBA success versus college achievement, that Caitlin Clark is the bigger star. Who makes a difference now is more important than who has received more recognition. Despite all of Wilson's achievements, she isn't the one generating interest in women's basketball. In fact, this has been happening for some time. Clark is. This jersey retirement scenario wasn't the only thing that made Wilson angry. She has long expressed her opinion that the WNBA and women's basketball in general do not receive the respect they merit. She has discussed the differences in compensation, viewership, and sponsorship agreements, and to some extent, she is correct. Historically, women's sports have had difficulty gaining widespread acceptance, but Caitlin Clark has changed the discussion all by herself. Not only is Clark a fantastic basketball player, but she is also an entertainment phenomenon, drawing large crowds at her games, selling out arenas, and breaking TV ratings. People who don't typically watch women's basketball are tuning in because of her, and she is receiving media attention that no other women's player has ever received before. Wilson finds this offensive because, in her opinion, she should be the one receiving that kind of attention because she has won championships, dominated the WNBA, and proven herself to be the best. So why isn't she receiving the same level of attention? Degree of adoration and respect that Clark is. The solution is straightforward. Wilson never connects with people the way Clark does. It's not just skill. If it were, the conversation would be very different. Wilson is one of the greatest players in the game, but Clark has an unmistakable charm that Wilson lacks. People adore her enthusiasm and vigor. The path. She exudes a positive attitude both on and off the court, making basketball enjoyable and giving others a sense of belonging. However, Wilson has always had an advantage. She always feels like she's being taken advantage of and that she's not getting what she deserves. While this attitude may work in some circumstances, it doesn't make her relatable to casual fans. Rather, it drives them away, which is precisely what we're witnessing right now when we look at how both of their jersey retirements are handled. Elle Wilson's event, on the other hand, feels more like a duty, while Clark's is a celebration that supporters are treating like a historic moment that they cannot miss. She is their finest player ever. Therefore, South Carolina is retiring her jersey. Because, well, they have to, but there isn't much excitement, and you can't blame this on media bias or some plot to put Clark over Wilson. This is what the fans are selecting. They are the ones who determine whose events they wish to attend, and which names are worth paying to see. Wilson dislikes that she's watching her moment get overshadowed. She's seeing the difference in demand, and deep down, she knows that Clark isn't just a passing trend. She's the future of women's basketball. The WNBA has spent years trying to force Wilson into that role, and it's never quite worked. She's had the backing of the league, the media, and some of the biggest names in basketball. And yet, even with all of that, she never generated this kind of excitement. Meanwhile, Clark has done it organically. That's what makes this whole situation so frustrating for Wilson. She spent years fighting for respect, pushing for people to care about the game, and then seemingly overnight, Clark shows up and makes it all happen effortlessly. That's a hard pill to swallow. But instead of being mad about it, Wilson should be learning from it. She should be looking at what Clark is doing and asking herself, how can I connect with fans in that way? How can I make myself more accessible, more exciting, more engaging? How can I bring the same level of passion to the game that Clark does? At the moment, their energy is so different that Wilson is acting as though she is being cheated out of attention and fan support. But no one is owed either. Wilson earned respect, championships, and accolades, but she never won the affection of the casual fan, which is why there is such a stark difference in how their jersey retirements are handled. Wilson wants to be regarded as one of the best, but she must realize that basketball is about more than just numbers and titles. It's about connections, about who fans want to watch, and about who they care about. At the moment, she is losing that battle to Caitlin Clark in a way that makes it impossible to ignore. Every time Clark takes the court, fans feel as though something extraordinary is about to happen, and the majority of the time, they are right. Whether it's a ridiculous deep three, a flashy pass, or an emotional moment that goes viral, Clark has the it factor, that unique ability to make people care about what she's doing. Wilson, on the other hand, is a dominant force in the WNBA, but domination by itself doesn't create excitement. She also plays amazing basketball, but it's not must-see TV. Individuals desire amusement, involvement, and distinct personalities. It's not about disrespecting Wilson. Rather, it's about the fact that CLK's name cells placed people in seats, created headlines, and made a difference. Wilson doesn't display all of that the way Clark does, which is why the gap between their jersey retirements is so obvious. Despite her success, Wilson hasn't developed that kind of fan loyalty. If you don't think so, just consider the response when it was announced that both of their jersey retirements were coming up. Following Clark's revelation, supporters immediately marked the day on their calendars. Due to the increasing cost of tickets, many are already making travel plans to Iowa City. Wilson, meanwhile, is hardly known outside of hardcore. Fans of South Carolina are the problem. Wilson may believe that she should be receiving the same amount of attention as Clark, but the reality is that she hasn't worked as hard to establish her brand as Clark has. It's not just about basketball either. It's about media presence, social engagement, and giving people a reason to care about things other than the game itself. Take a look at how Clark engages with the public. She's always giving fans something to latch onto, celebrating every shot as though it's a game winner, and engaging with opponents in a way that creates amazing. Discussing her, Wilson, on the other hand, has always adopted a more somber stance. She is outspoken about WNBA concerns and advocates for equality, but she lacks the contagious enthusiasm that inspires others. The reason this whole situation is playing out the way it is because, although devoted to her, Wilson's fans don't show up in the same manner as Clark's, and that's what really separates the two. It's not about who is the better player or even who deserves more recognition. It's about who has established a connection with the public and who hasn't. Although Wilson has been pushed by the WNBA for years as the league's spokesperson, Clark has radically changed what the general public views as women's basketball. And let's face it, it must hurt. The fact that Clark is still in college and already bigger than anything the WNBA has ever seen is a difficult pill to swallow. But rather than being bitter, Wilson should be taking notes and figuring out how she can elevate herself beyond basketball and become a true cultural icon, just like Clark has done. Wilson has spent years working hard in the WNBA to prove that the league deserves more respect, fighting to grow the game and doing all the right things. Easily, because the truth is that Clark isn't an exception. She's not just a fortunate person who happened to be at the right place at the right moment. She's been working at this for years, developing her brand, expanding her fan base, and becoming more than just a fantastic player. Wilson had that chance, but she didn't take advantage of it the way Clark did, and now she's paying the price. The WNBA has been trying to market Wilson for years, but it hasn't really clicked on a mainstream level. They've tried, put her in ads, heavily promoted her, and done everything they could to make her the superstar she deserves to be. But it never took off. Wilson's response to all of this is telling because, rather than celebrating her own success or accepting her jersey retirement as a special moment, she's caught up in comparison, watching Clark's moment be bigger and letting it ruin what should be a legendary moment for her own career. Clark, on the other hand, hasn't even entered the league yet, and she's already the most marketable player women's basketball has ever seen. That's not an accident, that's not unfair, that's just reality. Wilson should be looking in the mirror and realizing that she needs to do more than just play excellent basketball. She needs to be someone that people can relate to on an emotional level. This is what Clark has mastered, which is why right now Wilson's retirement is an afterthought.